Folks, I had a subscriber ask an interesting question the other day. He's a hunter, and I think he wants to kind of create the effect of looking through a scope and seeing an animal in the crosshairs. And so he asked kind of how I would artificially do this without having to shoot a GoPro Hero 3 through the scope. So I've never done this before, so we're going to kind of learn together on this. I kind of have in mind what I would like to do. And since I'm an Adobe man, I'm going to use Photoshop. I'm going to use Adobe Illustrator to create some graphics to pull this off. And if you don't have those, there are other programs that can draw and create the kind of masks that I'm going to use for this video. This is a piece of video my brother Tim has given me. He actually shot this for me of some deer just eating corn out in his backyard. Tim does not shoot deer in his backyard. He does actually hunt them, but he likes to kind of feed them and watch them shoot videos. So there I've defended my brother Tim for those who think he baits deers. He does deer. He does not. So there's a couple ways I thought I could do this. First of all, I'm going to go into Photoshop. I'm going to create a mask, and I'm going to do a 1920 by 1080 because that's what 1080p is. So I've done a file new. I'm creating a blank document 1920 by 1080, and so I'm going to say okay. I've got it in RGB color, and that's fine. Now before this is a blank layer here, and you see all these checks in. That means it's transparent. So before I do anything to this, I'm actually going to copy this layer. So I'm going to have two blank layers. So why would I want two blank layers? Well, one of them I'm going to fill with black. So I'm going to go up here. Right now, when mine came up, it was defaulting to the crop tool up here. I'm going to go up here, and it may actually be selected. I'm going to find out, but I'm going to go, just in case, I'm going to go to the selection tool. I'm going to do a Control A. Now, for certain, you see these little jaggedy lines that kind of pulsate. That means I selected this whole area on this top layer. So I'm on layer 1. I'm going to say Edit, Fill with black. Color, we'll say black. I'm not going to preserve transparency. If you preserve transparency, it'll do absolutely nothing. So I'm going to make sure preserve transparency is turned off. I'm going to say okay. Now I've got a big black thing here, right? Okay. Okay, now I want to create me a blank circle here in the middle, the very middle of this. So I kind of want to know what the very middle of this is. So I had pixels 1920 by 1080, and I'm not sure exactly. I'm going to go to image size, and instead of 1920 by 1080, I'm going to change this to inches just for a second. And I'm going to see that it's 26.667 by 15. Well, I know that half of 15. What I want to do, I want to put a guideline here and here. And I know that half of 15 is what? That's going to be, help me out folks, that's 7.5. And half 26.667 is going to be 13.333, I guess. So I'm going to say, okay, 13.333 and 7.5, 13.333. So I'm going to say up here, I'm going to say View. I'm going to put New Guide. I'm going to do a vertical one of, 13.333. I'm going to say okay, boom, and there's me a guide right dead center, pretty darn close. Now I'm going to go up here, I'm going to say View, and I'm going to do New Guide, and I'm going to do a horizontal of, what was it, 7.5? 7.5, boom. Now I have actually a crosshair on here, but there's two, I'm going to do this in two steps. What I really want to do right now is I want to create a big blank hole right here that I can use, and I'll see the deer through this hole. So I'm going to do this with selection again. I'm going to deselect first, Control D. Now right now I have deselected. I've got a black box over the top of a clear background. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go over here to selection, and I'm going to pick elliptical. And then I'm going to go really just kind of anywhere in here where I think I want my circle to be, where we're going to view the deer through the hole. I'm going to click, I'm going to see left click and hold my shift key down so I can create a perfect circle. So I'm creating this perfect circle here. It's not lined up dead center yet, but that's about what I'm looking to get right there, about like that. Now I'm going to pull this circle and it's going to lock. Photoshop will let you lock right into that, and so it automatically knew where to go to make a dead center circle in this based on my guides here. So now I have really what I'm looking for. That's going to be a hole that we see the deer through, and so the guy's going to be looking through the scope, and it's all going to be black out here just like it would be if we were seeing it through a scope. So I'm going to hit delete. So now I have a big piece of black video with a hole in it. I'm going to do a Control D again. Now, looking through our scope, a lot of times when you're looking through a real scope, it's a little bit fuzzy around this edge here. Now I could do this fuzzy effect in Photoshop, but I'm going to wait and do it in Adobe Premiere. So I'll show you kind of what I'm after here in just in a minute. First thing I'm going to save this. Now, I can actually at this point I can go ahead and throw this bottom layer away, and it just makes it it doesn't really change the size of it, I don't think, but makes it just a simpler file for me to work with in Premiere when I import it. So I've got just a layer of a black box with a hole in it. I'm going to say File, Save, and I am going to save this as a Photoshop PSD. PSD allows you to have transparency inside of Adobe Premiere. So I'm going to go to this is where I'm going to navigate to where I have this work that I'm doing. So now I have box with hole PSD. I'm going to say save. And yes, we want to do this maximize compatibility, so I'm going to say yes, okay. Now I'm going to toggle back over to Premiere. So now I have a bit of deer video that I want. I'm going to go ahead and hit play. I'm going to put an endpoint here. I'm going to see if this is about what I'm looking for. There's a deer eating, and he looks and he sees. Oh, he knows he's in the crosshairs now, doesn't he? My brother Tim turned the camera off. That's actually going to work, so I'm going to back up just a little bit here. I like that. All right, so I'm going to put an out point there. I'm going to pull this piece of deer video down onto the timeline. And just since it doesn't last very long, I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to say speed duration. I'm going to slow it down a little bit. I'm going to slow it to 50%, and that gives me a little bit more video to work with here. So now I have this deer. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to import this box with hole. There's box with hole open. So I've imported that file. It says merge all layers. I'm just going to do the individual layer and say OK, just to be safe. So now I should have, if I pull it onto it, I should have the layer here, and I've got a hole to look through, right? Well, I need the crosshairs, so and plus I want the deer to be in the middle of the crosshairs eventually. So we're going to create that now. I'm going to go to Adobe Illustrator to do that. And so I'm going to say File, New, and I'm going to go to Pixels here. And pixels will give me exactly what I'm looking for. I want my units to be pixels, and so I'm going to do width 1920 since we're working on 1080p, and height 1080 1080. Boom. So now I have me a big 1080p piece of art here. Now I'm going to make this even a little bigger. I'm going to make my circle a little bigger than it was on the other one, so I can size it down in Premiere anyway. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to pick a ellipse tool. I'm going to go to the very top and kind of top left corner here. I'm going to hold my shift key down again. I'm going to left click. I'm going to draw a big ellipse. So I've drawn this big circle. It's not dead center of this because I'll be able to reposition this anyway with my Premiere. I could probably try to drag it a little bit closer to center here, couldn't I? Let's make it about center there. It looks sort of close. I never know exactly what center is because I'm trying to keep my head out of the screen here, you see. And just for a moment, I'll put my head in the middle. That looks pretty much close to center. Now, what I do want to do here is I want to create that whole line effect where you got the crosshairs thing. So I'm going to take a line. I'm going to bisect this. I can see here that I've got, you know, this is Illustrator being real nice and helping me draw this line. So it's actually giving me sort of cheating me out here and showing me how to. It's actually creating that dead center of this circle, which is very convenient. Thank you very much, Illustrator, for doing that. So now I've got pretty much my crosshairs, But you know, the effect you're used to seeing, it's usually a little bit fatter out here, and then it gets narrow down here in the center. Sometimes there are little bitty tiny hash marks and stuff. So I'm gonna actually do just a little bit of that. This line here, I'm gonna duplicate both of these lines. So I'm gonna select both of them, and I'm gonna do a Control C and a Control V. Now they're gonna come in off center, but I'm just gonna do. I'm actually gonna group those two. Let's do this. Control A, and I'm going to go to alignment. I'm going to do my line here, and I'm going to hit center, and I'm going to hit this one. Now, so what I just did here, I selected everything, the circle and everything, and I went to Align Objects, Window, Align, and it pulled up this. Let me pull this over here, you can see it a little bit better. And then this one does your center, and this one does your vertical line center. So now I've got them both aligned to center. And I've got a copy of the two lines. So actually, if I were to delete one of these lines, there's another one underneath it. There's another one here underneath it. So first thing I'm going to do, I'll make this line fatter. So I'm going to go over here to you know, your stroke. I'm going to stroke this thing up a little bit like that. Okay, pretty cool. Now I'm going to do this one. Let's just stroke that one up a little bit. That looks about like what I'm trying to do there. Pretty good. Okay. So I'm going to now actually I can copy these lines one more time. Watch this. Okay, so now I've got just those two. I'm going to copy and paste them again. Control C, Control V. Once again, I'm a little bit out of alignment here. I'm going to do a Control A again. I'm going to align center vertical, and I'm going to align center horizontal. So now I have actually three versions of the line. There's one skinny one up underneath this. So I am going to pull this one back to about this point right here. I'm going to pull this one back to this point right about here. See what I'm getting here? I'm going to pull this one down to this point right about here. I'm going to pull this one up to this point right about here. Now I've not done this exactly right. I should make sure these are exactly concentric. So that how could I do that? Well, I can draw another circle that I'm going to delete after the fact. So I'm going to pull another little circle in here like this. So once again, this one's off center. I don't want to let it stroke to 11. I'm going to let that one be, I'm going to let that one be way, let it back down to 1 point again. I'm going to select this top circle. I'm going to pull it out of the way just for a minute. And since I like what I've kind of got here, I'm going to group this just for a second. Control A. I'm going to deselect the circle by clicking on it with holding my shift key down. So now I have all this selected. There's actually a better way I could have selected that too. I could have just gone up here with my select key, and I could have just drawn a big circle around this and left the other circle out. So now it's all selected. I'm going to group this for a second. Say Object. I'm going to say Group. Now I'm going to pull the circle back, this other circle here, back onto this, and I'm going to do a center and a center again, and now that circle is dead center of this big circle. I had to group these others because otherwise my other objects would have been trying to all center off each other. So I grouped this all the back one together before doing that because I just did not want to mess up my alignment by the lines going to the center, right? Because now I have partial lines. So now what I'm going to do, now I can see exactly where I need to drag these other lines to. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to ungroup this now. Object, ungroup. Now I can pull these lines exactly to the corner of this thing, and Illustrator again is going to help me with that. It actually just lets me lock it, snaps right to it. So now those folks who are Illustrator, really great Illustrator people are going to laugh at the way I'm doing this. They're going to probably say, "Oh, you could have done this a way easier way," and they're probably right. I use Illustrator some, but not so much. But now I have exactly what I'm looking for. And yeah, I'm realizing, and since it's just 1 pixel, it might be hard to see these two lines. I'm going to make them just a little bit more. I'm going to Control that one, and then I'm going to hold shift and I'm going to hold again. So now I have just those two. It looks like the whole circle, but it's really not. I'm going to bump that up a couple more pixels. Now we've got a little bit fatter line. That will show up a little better in Premiere. Otherwise, it might not have shown up. It might have been too thin. Now at this point, I don't even really need the circle because I'm going to use the box for the circle. So I might actually just go ahead and delete this. As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to. So now I actually have my crosshairs I'm going to use. I'm going to say File, Save. And I'm going to put this in the same folder where I'm doing this work. And I'm going to install crosshairs. See? Okay, and I've saved it as an Illustrator format, which is just fine. I'll say save. Okay. Now I'm going to, minimize this, and I'm going to pull that into my Premiere. So now I have crosshairs. And first of all, let me go ahead and so I already have my hole. I have my crosshairs. I should be able to pull my crosshairs over the top of this. And looky there, I have crosshairs right there that we're looking at through the scope. But now the the crosshairs are too big. So what am I going to do? What am I going to do about this? Well, I'm going to click on crosshairs, and I'm going to go to Effects Control, and I'm going to go to Scale. I'm going to go to Motion. I'm going to twirl down my scale. And I'm going to pull that back till it fits right inside my little circle there, right? Maybe I'll even pull it in just a little bit. And so there we go. I might just take it all the way out to the edge. What the heck? Looks like about 89.9% is going to go all the way out to the edge. Forgive me for the encroachment of my head here once in a while, folks. I have to just once in a while just be able to see a little better. So I'm going to pull the extent of this Photoshop layer out to the very end of this video and back out here. I'm going to pull the crosshairs out this way and this way. I'm going to go down here. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. So what I want is I want the effect of this deer being pulled into the crosshairs, right? So unfortunately, my deer just sits in this piece of video. He doesn't move into the crosshairs at all, does he? All right, and yes, it just looks like my brother Tim or somebody's looking through and he's shooting at this bush here. I want the effect of Tim zooming in that deer, even though the deer is not moving. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move the deer around a little bit. I'm going to click on the layer here that has the deer eating corn, and I'm going to make that actually move in like my brother Tim is shooting, is trying to sight the deer in. So I'm going to go back to the very first frame. See, I moved in time all the way back to the very beginning. I'm going to go to Motion. I have the deer selected, and I'm going to go to Position and Scale and turn the toggle buttons on. These are the toggle animation buttons. So I'm doing this, and so I'm going to let it start exactly where it is. I'm going to have my brother move the scope into position, which would probably be the shoulder of this deer. So I'm going to let this go like over time, over about a half second. I'm going to let him go past the deer first. This is going to be interesting looking. We'll go this way and maybe down a little bit. So what I'm doing, I'm taking these position, scale, and I'm moving. I'm just going and holding the finger over it, and then I'm left clicking. And I'm just pulling. You can do that, so you can pull into position. So right now I'm a little high. I'm not side in. I'm side down on the back end of the deer, but what it's done is put a keyframe here for position, and I didn't change the scale. But that's okay. We're not going to change the scale anyway. I don't know why I clicked scale. I shouldn't have done that. Now I'm going to pull back. Let's say he's just kind of erratically getting his position just the way he wants it. Now he's a little bit high. Then I'll pull forward a little bit more in time again. And now he's getting really zoned in. Maybe he goes just a little bit farther this way, a little bit down. And then I'm going to go just a little bit farther again. And this time he gets the deer right where he wants it. He wants it right about there where the heart's going to be. Make sure I'm in the right spot. You guys who are deer hunters probably will say, okay, I think he's about right there, maybe. And then I'm going to leave this deer. So now let's look at what we've got. If I hit that, let me click on this and hit the tilde key. Tilde key will show you the whole 9 yards here. And we're going to say play. So there my brother is. Oh, he finally got the deer right in the sights. Let's turn this on where we can preview it in full, because right that was that looked kind of fuzzy. Let's try this again. Okay, so there he's ready to shoot that deer. Pretty sweet. The only other thing I would do to really sell this is, I know from my experience looking through a scope, usually this outside is a little bit fuzzy because you're usually seeing, I'm going to hit the tilt again and get out of this, you're usually seeing the edge, the outside edge of your optics. And so usually this edge of this circle is going to be a little bit fuzzy. So I'm going to click back on my Photoshop one. And I told you I was going to show you how to blur this just a little bit. I'm going to go over here to Effects, the Effects tab. I clicked on it. I'm going to type in Blur. Now, there are a number of effects here. One really cool effect I like to use a lot is this fast blur in from time to time. Really cool effect. Experiment with that if you want to. It's a blur in type thing. But what I'm really looking for on this one is I'm looking for a Gaussian blur down here. And I'm going to put, or Gaussian blur, I guess what you use. I always call it Gaussian. This thing is Gaussian. So I'm going to put that on here. And I'm going to blur this just a little. Look at that. Now what's happened here, I didn't realize it was going to happen, is it has also slightly blurred my edge down here. See what's happening? I don't want that to look like that. I want it to be solid black down here. I think I'm going to do a File, New, Title. No, it doesn't matter what we call it. And now I'm going to make this title. I'm going to go into this title. I'm going to grab some rectangle tools. And I'm going to pull a rectangle over here. And I'm going to go to the color. I'm going to make it black. So I'm actually just going to probably, I can use my picker if I want to and get that. Actually, kind of, that's probably the better way to do it. Say cancel. Let's just grab this and I'll pick black. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to draw another kind of box on the outside of, on the outside here. And this one's going to be black as well. I'm going to draw another one on the outside over here. This one will be black. And another one on the outside over here. This one will be black. Okay. I'm going to do Control Save. I'm going to close that. And now I'm going to pull this title over onto the top of this. And now should be presto, all the black's gone out of around that edge where I did my blur. So now I got the cool, see one thing I've done wrong. I went too far with my title, didn't I? Well, I see what's going on. It's my deer video up top that's going on. Okay, so one thing I'm seeing at the top up here, as I drag across it, is I'm seeing the edge of my deer video up here go out. So maybe what I ought to do is I ought to make my deer video just a little bit bigger so that it fits in there and doesn't give me this little edge up here, right? So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to zoom this deer in just a little bit. I am going to scale him. Let's go back to the very beginning. Let's just make the scale a good bit bigger there. Now let's try our position and all. Now I'm seeing, okay, I still need one more position keyframe. So let's pull the deer down here, again, and here. You get the idea of what I'm doing. I'm not doing it the most graceful way in the world, but there we go. Now I actually just add a little bit more. So now we have this. And it looks pretty much like somebody sighting in. Let me do a tilt on this again. Select that and hit tilt. And here's what we have. And there you go. It looks like somebody sighting in. And we've got our little bit of blurriness around the edge. It looks like somebody really looking through a scope. Folks, there may be easier ways to do this. If you are a professional out there, I mean, I'm a professional because I get paid to do this, but I won't say that I'm the absolute best, do-all, end-all, great guy when it comes to pulling this kind of stuff off. Maybe somebody else has done the same sort of thing and done it a little better than I've done it. Share your way of doing it, but this is me using Illustrator, using Photoshop, and using Adobe Premiere Pro to create the effect of a deer in the sights. And so there we go, folks. One more time.